Hello everyone, welcome to IMS Get Set Law channel. I'm Akash Srivastav, your law mentor, and today in Law Library session, we are going to discuss a very important judgment. So, as you can see on my screen, the name of the judgment is Vishaka and Others versus State of Rajasthan. Judgment was so important and so critical that it framed a new legislation. So, students, let's discuss it. So, students, before starting the judgment, before starting discussing the facts of the case, important things that happened in the judgment, we need to discuss why this case is so important for us. So, in this case, elaborate guidelines to deal with the menace of sexual harassment against women at workplace was discussed by Supreme Court, and a new law came into picture. So, students, let's discuss the facts of the case. So, what exactly happened? So, this is a case of Rajasthan. So, there was a lady who was a social worker. She was associated with Rajasthan state government. There was an initiative of Rajasthan state government where exactly they were trying to prevent child marriages in village. So, she tried being associated with this particular movement. She tried to prevent a child marriage that was happening in her village, but she was not able to. And the person in whose family the child marriage was happening, they gang raped her. So let's discuss. So Bhavri Devi, a social worker, was gang raped for trying to stop child marriage. She managed to file a complaint. After that particular incident, she filed a complaint, but the response was not adequate. So, however, the district and session court in Jaipur dismissed the case and acquitted all the 5 accused. So, after filing a complaint with police, a case was filed, but due to lack of evidence, district and session court dismissed the case. The matter gained momentum when news published in Rajasthan Patrika. So, after the case was dismissed by session court, a news article was published in Rajasthan Patrika, that was the local newspaper, and it went viral. And the state government, after being pressured by women's group and non-governmental organization NGOs, decided to appeal the judgment. So, appeal was filed in High Court of Rajasthan. 5 years after the incident in 2007, the Rajasthan High Court held only one hearing on the case, and 2 of the accused were dead by then. So, taking this into consideration, first of all, what happened? District and Session Court dismissed the case. An appeal was filed to High Court of Rajasthan, where only one hearing was done, and 2 of the accused were already dead by then. So, this provoked women's rights group. So, they wanted to file a PIL before Supreme Court of India, and they did that in the name of Vishaka. The petition was filed under Article 32, in which all the writs are provided, contesting the violation of Article 14, Article 15 and Article 21. So, Article 14 discusses about right to equality, Article 15 talks about there should be no discrimination, and Article 21 talks about right to life. The petition raised the issue of the need for the protection of women from sexual harassment in the workplace. So, students, as we discussed the facts of the case, it was very clear that Bhavri Devi was part of government because she was working under an initiative that was the state government's initiative. So, it was very important to make a rule that if something happens within the state government or within the person, the employee of the state government, then there should be strict rules for that. And taking that into consideration, Supreme Court gave this judgment. So, students, let's discuss the judgment of the case. So, in this case, the Honorable Supreme Court realized the need for proper and effective legislation that would deal with sexual harassment in the workplace. So, the need of the hour was that there should be some rules that if something happens in the workplace, there should be some strict guidelines for that. The court held that there had been a violation of Article 14, Article 15, Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause G of the Constitution of India. Court also took into consideration the international guidelines and directive principle of state policy in this case. In this case, Supreme Court of India responded to the situation and issued various instructions to prevent sexual harassment in the workplace, known as Vishaka guidelines. So, this guideline was passed in this case. The court declared this as a law under Article 141 of the Constitution because they have right to do so until appropriate legislation is enacted. So, when we talk about the power to enact any particular law, this is with legislation. So, in this case, what Supreme Court did, they passed a guideline and declared this as a law under Article 141 till the period legislation frames any particular law related to this case. So, students, according to the guidelines, employers are responsible for taking preventive measures to prevent sexual harassment and filing a report if such an act is discovered to have occurred with an employee. The guidelines also demand the central government and the state pass the appropriate laws to ensure that the private sector is held to the same standard as the public sector. So, when we talk about this law, it was primarily focusing on public sector, but Supreme Court said that it is the responsibility of the state government and central government to pass certain laws that would ensure the same type of protection under public sector as well as private sector. So students, if an employer's behavior against an employee amounts to a criminal offence punishable under the IPC, that is Indian Penal Code, the employer must file a report. This was also passed by Supreme Court of India. So students, it was also decided by Supreme Court of India in this case that all organizations must establish a complaint redressal committee, and the objective of this committee was that if something happens, they should be able to handle it appropriately, and that appropriate action is done in response to them. This was one important thing that happened in this case, that a third party such as NGO should also be involved, or some other person should also be involved, because if all the person will be related to that organization, then there is a probability that there may be corruption or bias in this case. So taking into consideration all the guidelines, all the rules and regulations that was passed by Supreme Court of India, known as Vishaka guidelines, a new law was passed that was known as Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act 2013, later replaced the Vishaka guideline. So Vishaka guideline was replaced by this particular act, and the relevance of this act is still now. So student, this was all with respect to Vishaka case. In this case, we discussed facts of the case, what exactly happened at that point of time, and how it molded and how Supreme Court of India framed specific guidelines related to sexual harassment in workplace, and how that guideline became the base for a new act. So students, thank you for watching the video. Stay tuned for many more important judgments that we will be discussing in Law Library session. Thank you.